I'm recording.
Can you hear me
Right.
now?
Yes,
Yes, it does.
yeah,
Excuse me, my crayon is a monkey, which I find this conversation
Taking some interest in learning a bit more about technology, philosophy, and I like to.
I'm an educator.
Absolutely. We're going to stay anonymous.
That's a cop out.
The binary's gone. I thought jingle was plus Dutch for cheers.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Binary Thinking, where if we can't change your mind, we may at least open it a little bit. I'd like to give a big shout out to all the people that have been sending us feedback and comments. We really appreciate it. And with that in mind, we kind of want to open up the conversation a bit more. We were thinking of having a live stream, doing something on Discord, maybe having a party, spinning some tunes. So if that appeals to you and you could make it on a Saturday in the near future, please do reach out and let us know, and we will send an invite to the first 20 people that do that. So what are we talking about today, Jones?
It's the Futurological Conference. Dun, dun, dun. What the hell is that? So we had loads of ideas, didn't we, guys? Like of sort of tidbits of topics, and we weren't really sure what to do with them, right? So we just
it's
thought,
sort of like
not?
our own mini series of what are potential futures for the universe, for humanity, for society. So
Yeah.
Futurologist, like what an amazing job to have.
I actually know a couple of professional futurologists.
No way.
I would
For
love
real.
to.
You can do anything in the B2B space. You're either a life coach or you pay some business to go and tell you, like, yeah, I see into the future, the next big wave.
I would love to do that as a job.
Yeah.
I think when I get fed up of teaching, I'm just going to be a self-made futurologist.
I've thought about putting it on a business card. I mean, fuck, why not?
Just imagine that, futurologist. People just be like,
I've made so many business cards, and what do you do with a business card these days?
You got to have a QR code, haven't you?
That's my first prediction for the future. Then, like business cards, game over. Man.
Do you think so though? Because I saw a video the other day, and it's the guy who made his own business card. He's a 3D model designer and manufacturer, and he made a business card that's like a classic blister pack with a designed aeroplane in it that he's 3D printed, and then he's vacuum formed the sort of blister pack, and then the actual card background is his details and everything. And one of I was showing a student, she said, "Nah, but it's it's not really a very good business card, is it?" And I said, "The video's got 4 million views."
Well, this is the point.
You know what I mean?
You didn't see the business card; you saw the social media share,
which is the business card now, right?
Business card, yes. People talking about something they saw in real life.
That's it. So do you reckon just business cards will just move into this like more abstract, like digital realm? I reckon they might do, right?
I mean, it already kind of is. I mean, you get someone as a WhatsApp contact, a Facebook contact.
Yeah. Or like your own website, for example. Being a freelancer now, I've got my website, and that's going to be kind of when I contact people, there it is. There's my website. There's my business card. But I like the physicality of a real business card,
Physically meeting someone. Those were the days.
Yeah.
I mean, look, let's go dark. Like, I don't think COVID-19 will be the first mega plague that shuts down the world, right? Like, we all know the drill now that this is going to happen.
Especially we kind of know where it comes from as well, right? That it comes from intensive animal agriculture, and then the cold supply chain seems to be...
Yeah, and
there's some New Scientist article about that. So
it's really interesting that for all the people saying, we'll shut down the entire global economy for 2 years. Okay, that'll be tough, but we'll do it. But the idea of, let's stop mass industrialized meat manufacturing. It wasn't even pushed back against. It wasn't even discussed as an option. Like,
barely came up in the news. Yeah. But do you not think it will just get to a point where people go like, how much do you really want meat? Do you know what I mean? Like, how many pandemics do you want?
A lot. Because this is what my friend, who is not an expert, but he's friends with experts, and was jumping on calls with a bunch of, biochemists and asking them. And they said, look, lockdowns don't work because as soon as someone comes in contact with a livestock animal, such as cows, It'll be stored there.
Oh,
So-
right. So then it keeps jumping back and forth. No?
This is why these plagues are so bad to us, is that a cow will live with whatever because they're
We don't know
huge.
we don't know if cows live with COVID-19 though, but we do know that minks live with them, and that's why mink farms are getting closed, because the mutations do jump between minks and humans. And we've always known that chicken farms and cow farms are breeding bats for viral infections, right? We just have not seen that many really become a very big issue. We've had swine flu, but that was nearly not as bad as
the avian flu was similar,
right? Yeah,
but not as bad.
Well, not as bad as corona in terms of numbers of damage that it did. I do think in the end the response was quite extreme and quite late.
Yeah.
Let's contain it when it's already uncontainable.
Yeah. And likewise,
now we're stuck in that. And
even
like,
now,
it's uncontainable.
The whole of the first world will get vaccines, but they're not closing down flights, and they're not vaccinating the third world. So this thing's not going away anytime soon.
No, and while you're hoping that it doesn't mutate again to make the vaccines become pointless again, right? And
if there's a big mutation, true.
And this is the point with healthcare. We're only as strong as our weakest link, and we are not looking after all 8 billion people on the planet, like soon to be 9.
Well, we never did, and the maze is falling apart here. I mean, we already knew that we weren't really taking care of the entire third world, right?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, yeah, good luck with it. Good luck with your lives. And we'll live from the thrones of our Western worlds. And now we have to deal with it as well. No, the world is not at capacity to deal with people getting sick. A lot of people getting sick.
For sure, man. It's like a magnifying glass on pre-existing conditions, right? Like if you take mental health, for example, there was already a mental health kind of crisis, happening, right? Kind of in slow motion due to maybe various factors, but probably a lot due to alienation and capitalism and this underlying pressure in the background. And then now it's just been magnified. There's 1 in 3 people are having mental health difficulties because of the lockdowns.
So let me start with a big, bold, positive view of the future, and we can pick apart what that would be before we get into how likely it is, because let's start by admitting none of us know.
We're not starting with environmental apocalypse? Damn.
No. Well,
We've done that one.
But I think all of these things,
look back at our previous episode,
as you say, have like a magnifying glass on the fact that we're only as strong as the weakest in our society. So I do see things like the WHO or the governing body that replaces it becoming much better funded, especially under a Biden big project sort of leading that charge. And I can imagine, like us being much more dedicated to third world healthcare and understanding the needs of that. Likewise, I can see us becoming much more concerned with things like affordable housing in the next 2 years.
The housing?
Well, because
of homelessness. Because it's like
2 reasons. Like one, I think, homelessness is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And the second really is that commercial property is just going to be worth less and less and less. Like offices are going to become a thing of the past, and once that happens, you're just going to have this shedding.
Much space.
And then once the market falls, right, and drops, it then just becomes a social good rather than a profit-making mechanism. Right, at the moment, it's just built on perpetual expectation of growth of revenue, and as soon as that cycle dies, we can finally be like, a bunch of people need housing. Like we can't just forever grow this as an economic industry. Right? So I also see, I'm very hopeful on the last American election, despite the natural need for cynicism, that you can kind of see the wheels falling off for the right-wing dream. Like they're losing the culture wars and they're getting crazier and crazier. Like
what will be the conclusion of that?
Younger and younger. So I just think as these things, like it no longer becomes an option or even profitable to ignore poor people, like because of things like health and housing and all these different things. I just see it like the end of the zeitgeist. Like Trump was the dying death throes of a weird cult that reached its natural conclusion. Trickle down economics isn't going to work. we can't have any more austerity. Like none of these things will fucking move the needle for any of us. So I'm pretty optimistic that yes, as fucked as things will get, everything that goes wrong will be evidence for us to be like, well, yeah, like that's because our system is shit. We'll see politicians that are we already are seeing politicians that are starting to embrace that narrative doing quite well. So there's a bit of optimism for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. And I like what you say about the young people, that the world's getting younger and younger, because it's easy to sit here and go, well, it's all kind of from a personal sort of ego point of view. You kind of feel like the same age. No, I don't feel that much older than 19, right? But like obviously we've all grown older and the world has got younger and the ideas are slowly shifting. That's a really interesting point. And maybe that will have some impact in the environmental.
Well, the other thing is, let's be clear, right? Like in democracies, in all governments, wealth is power. And so much wealth just got cleaned off the slate in the last year. So many people who made money from owning. Imagine you owned a shopping mall 2 years ago. You were
yes, good. But do you not think that like the very richest are just doing like BlackRock investment,
the very richest,
and they're moving the investments around to the profitable.
That is 1% of people. So there's only so long you can rig that game, and people support it. And especially with this aging population, once people realize their pension pots are the next victim to go to austerity.
So you're expecting people to vote according to their best interests, which quite honestly is not happening right now.
No, but as I say, I think that's
anywhere
the panic death throes.
Anywhere in the world, right? What we're not seeing is necessarily people realizing what is going on and voting for their own, both democratically voting for their own interest as well as financially voting for their own interest. And the result of that is that we're seeing still an increasingly large gap in the divide of income between the 1% and the 99%. Increasingly wide, right? Last year, astronomically wide. Yeah, to the point that Jeff Bezos made so much every day. Yeah, that I don't have the numbers right here in front of me. People can Google that number, but it's fucking insane.
But the point is, it's so extreme that you can name the 4 people that did really well last year.
Right, but they did really, really well.
Yeah.
And so what I see is I just, anytime I think about the future, I see a class struggle coming. And we've seen signs of this class struggle, right? We've had the Occupy movement that reached some momentum.
Wall Street bets.
We've seen recently. Okay, yeah. It's but that's an internet meme trying to take on Goliath. So every time I think about it, I mean, one of my favorite futurologists is Kurzweil. What's his name?
Ray Kurzweil, yeah. The singularity.
Yeah.
He wants to throw, doesn't he?
He believes that the singularity will happen around 2042, where AI will just reach such a high impact of consciousness, self-aware consciousness. But even until that time, what AI is going to do is it's going to take away a lot of boring labor and it's going to create a lot of capital. And that could be for the good. And that combined with scientific inventions, which we're in an age of incredible scientific inventions, right? We're doing crazy things. We're discovering the Higgs boson particle. We're making mRNA vaccines within a year. We're doing some pretty crazy things.
We've started properly funding science and cutting the red tape, which we've been discussing for years. I think it's a Bill Gates quote that sort of like progress seems to, it's always slower than you think, but then happens. Like, it takes 10 years to happen overnight, right?
Right. I mean, Bill Gates has been in a fight against what I'm not sure of the disease, but they're eradicating it.
Tuberculosis, is it?
Yeah, he was trying to eradicate one of the infectious diseases. I think they almost did it or did it. And that's a long fight, right? To get really completely remove it from the face of the earth, right? That's just to the last case. That's pretty crazy fight. He's doing stuff for clear water, drinkable water, which is going to be an issue environmentally. Maybe to get down to that later. But what I see, like a couple of solutions, is fully renewable, cheap energy sources, and we have it. We have it in the sun. We have it in the middle of the earth. We have energy. It's just a matter of finding the technology and
to unlock
incorporating it to get it, and then having an efficient network to support that. Which are technological problems we can solve, right?
We're close to solving. And again, it seems so far, but once it happens, it'll happen very quickly.
Right.
And it's not just, I mean, we probably already have the tech for it. It's just a case of making it cheap enough that it's worth it, right?
It's viable.
But yeah, you read an article, New York, just before the invention of the car. And they were talking about the environmental disaster that was horse shit. And they were like, there's just piles and piles, as high as skyscrapers we're building, of horse shit. And the world is going to be covered in horse shit in 4 years by this projection. Like it's unsustainable. And I hope that's how people will look back at, our stupidity and short-sightedness. I think, Mering said something interesting, that people keep voting against their self-interest. But I think that's only if you think in the midterm, right? Like in the short term, this is the problem with people and group psychology and politics, is people often, it's just very short-termism, right? And it is hard for a bunch of weird individuals.
Often a little bit diluted by the influence of what we're seeing is to be fake news and people trying to be creating fear in people for things they don't understand. Basically what's happening in many countries, and people just suffering economically and trying to blame someone else for their economic suffering, right? Whether it's groups of migrants or a system or certain government or corruption here or corruption there, and there's always, but people are in a shitty situation and they want to find a way out, and they believe or not believe someone that is saying we have a solution. But they're not actually thinking about what are the ways of getting at that long-term solution, I think. Because if they do, then you would vote probably parties with a little bit more progressive environmental agenda. But what I see is, like, if you have those renewable sources, what you need to do with that, you have a lot of energy, is efficiently use the energy and the resources that we have, which the resources will also become more expanded by technological development, right? We'll have new materials to work with and new ways to use old materials as well. And this will need to create, as Chris said, a lot of cheap quality living spaces. And these living spaces will probably need to be quite large because we've urbanized the world and we need a lot of nature still, and we need to have place to grow our renewable resources. And they'll need to be green, I think. This is a very important element for the future. We'll need to create green urban spaces. And we'll need to have a circular food industry, smaller technological biomes, sort of biospheres that we can create that can sustain these communities.
Well, you mean like kind of greenhouses that could grow avocados out of season in Holland rather than shipping them in from
at
south
very
of Spain.
Low energy cost, at very high efficiency, without a lot of loss of resources. And they do that already in Holland. And it can be vertical, and it can be robots. They just change from one phase into the next phase. It doesn't even cost a lot of human labor. And we'll have to use the stuff that we throw away and the stuff that we consume, the waste of it, to incorporate into these more circular economies. It needs to be close, needs to be local. It doesn't cost us less to transport, but there's a lot of loss of capital there as well, right? Because there's a lot of capital in logistics.
Well, I think this is why the AI is the key, though, because I think
it's going to make it more efficient.
If AI had the reins, I can't imagine them setting up a system how we've set the planet up. They'd just be like, oh, that's fucking madness. No, we're not doing that.
Exactly. So what I believe even more than AI becoming self-aware is AI just driving us towards a sort of better, more efficient, healthier model of how to arrange society.
You know how they always say once you have self-driving cars, every time you click the manual drive button, it'll be like, well, that's going to cost you, your insurance is going to charge you more, because do you really want to steer that way? And it would be the same. If you're managing a company and the AI says this would be much more efficient, you're like, no, I want to do it the old way. It'd be like, well, all right, but it's going to put on the report that you went against the computer that's going to go on your professional record. But the computer said this is stupid and inefficient way of doing things. And you're like, okay, like, fine. That's how it'll start, right? They won't immediately replace people. There'll be a person there and there'll be like a little clippy pop-up. Are you sure you want to do it a really inefficient, environmentally unfriendly way? Like, fuck it. Right.
There's an awesome novel. I can't remember the name right now. It escapes me, but it's basically about that. It's about like we all have. It's a bit like Her. You know, you have an operating system, personal assistant, and you just try and go against it, but then your life just goes wrong every time. And
it will just always be the path
wrong.
of least resistance to be like, well,
exactly.
Every time we go this way, life gets more and more efficient. So.
But then it's like, but then what's living? You know, then you really get into that thing of like, oof, then you just.
Well, but that's interesting because then we can maybe learn and become artistic and creative and become supportive of each other and the things that sort of are enjoyable.
Right. Like if I could not work, just have an AI take care of that.
Well,
okay, we can
this is seriously possible. This is seriously possible.
Yeah.
Having the reason there doesn't need to be economy doesn't need to be tied to human labor. If automation gets to such a point that
what's the mean? You don't hate Mondays, you hate your job, right?
No, you hate capitalism.
There you go. But like, no, I'm sure I know you think there's work out there that you love doing. Like,
yeah, but like I'd rather just do stuff that I don't have to consider work that I love doing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. I don't think sort of idle boredom is the utopia.
I mean, also I could just go on some Buddhist retreat and if I wanted. But.
And this is what Rutger Bregman's trying to argue as well, right? He's written a book about utopia. It's that no, people will with free money want to do good things as well, and there'll still be people that want to be a doctor and want to save lives as a surgeon.
It comes down to optimism of the human condition, right? Some people are worried that if we weren't maximizing our productivity at every given moment, what would happen? And we'd all just be a bunch of drug addicts lying in the street. And I'm like, no. Like the number of times where if I could have gone and studied something for 2 months because I knew it was what I needed to study, it is only literally now at the point in my life where I'm running a growing business that I have the free space to be like, what is the best thing for me to be doing at any given moment, free from any dickhead telling me otherwise, right? Or any financial stress. That's about to change because I'm about to have a kid, but and I imagine I'll put that pressure on myself. But even then, like, I don't have this desire to be some weird billionaire. Like this isn't me boasting about that. Like I'm saying, I want that for everyone. I want everyone to be free to.
And it's not crazy to imagine because even
I need to make time to read this book because that's what I want to do, and that information is useful.
So one of the things that I was thinking kind of links into both of these things really that we were all talking about. And one was like the idea of, well, there's two different ones. One was to do with economy and one was to do with AI, to do with religion. So I'll save that one for later. But the economy one was something like that. What if we discovered or we were given some alternative to capitalism, right? Because, in the feudal times, everyone said, no, never going to get better than this. Do you know what I mean? This is the peak, man. and then capitalism came along, right? And then that was kind of better in some ways, but then also had some negative consequences. Once we reach that next step, then what's going to happen then? I think it'd be really interesting, right?
So I have a theory, and I think the feudalism versus capitalism puts it quite clearly, but it falls into a rut of a tired old debate of is capitalism good or bad? Capitalism is, right? Like just at the time, feudalism was. I think so much of the capitalism that we have problems with and we see now is actually probably more precisely defined as globalization, right? Like the idea of using petrochemicals to transport stuff all around, right? The idea of making it there because it's cheaper and shipping it there. And more importantly, shipping money wherever it would make the greatest return on investment just completely changed world geopolitics and made a mess of so many things that we've just touched upon here. The next wave won't necessarily be clearly branded or sold to us as the end of capitalism because that's not how we had change from feudalism. It was just iterative improvements of, have you tried this? Have you tried this? This is slightly more efficient. But it will sort of be the end of this, a bunch of people commuting to an office job in a city, right? Like
you're just talking about like a newer version of capitalism rather than like the next thing. Because if Toby was here, he'd probably be arguing quite strongly against what you've just said. Because it's like there's something called like capitalist realism, right? Like the ideology within capitalism that says that like, well, the idea is that you can't imagine an alternative. All you can imagine is sort of slightly improved versions of capitalism itself, rather than. But I'm talking here about like a what if futurological conference style thing. What if the aliens come and go, look, guys, here it is. Here's the next step from capitalism.
Right, but that's the point I was trying to get to, though. Just
let me write on that one as well, because where does capitalism? What is capitalism? Capitalism is that if you have capital, you can grow your capital into more capital, and more capital is more power. And basically, how does that compare to feudalism? It was you had someone with power who would force other people to give you money, which would then make you be the only one with the money and the capital to be strong, right? So that was the kings and the feudal lords, and they had the money, they paid the army took the money from the peasants, and now the king had all the money and the power. So capitalism was actually like sort of democratization. Now anyone that has capital can grow their capital into more capital. And who were the people that had capital? Well, it was usually the people that already had the capital, or the friends of the people that had the capital. And so we had like a class that built up, right? It was the friends of the friends of the friends with the people that were already in the right circles. They give each other the money and they could all grow their fortunes. And here and there you had like someone from a bit poor background that from their garage with a good idea became a capitalist who can build their own capital.
Lottery tickets, right? Social mobility, the idea of middle class, yeah.
And so this happened. So not necessarily a bad thing, but because capital is power and not everyone has capital, I mean, a lot of people were left behind.
And power tends to accumulate like gravity.
Yeah, so what if the aliens come? Well, they get rid of the idea that you need capital to have a good life, I would say.
It would be something like that.
Okay, but this is
I don't know what it would be though.
I don't think we need to rely on the aliens or even the AI. I think we're approaching a new zeitgeist of more decentralization and broader economic possibilities for everyone, right? Like,
so you'd argue that capitalism can be refined into that new system.
Whether you need guillotines or it happens through iterations isn't for us to decide here and now. I think
no, but it's interesting to know
bigger things will happen. But yes, I do think it is possible to slide into something unconsciously. I think most of the great revolutions in history, in hindsight, are discussed as a big moment. This was when the firework went off and the Bastille fell, right? But actually, like most of those periods probably happened over 100 years, and there was the thinking that went before it and other factors. Likewise, I think we're going to end up with a much younger population, completely disillusioned by neoliberal austerity politics, and just these dwindling, dying 1%ers and everyone else losing their pension, being like, what the fuck, we're fucked now, and it's going to need a big grand plan to happen at the same point as you're going to no longer need to work for a big corporation to earn your bread, and so everyone's going to be much more independent and forming communities based on other things than the corporation you work for.
What is the big grand plan that you just mentioned? Because this is kind of already happening and people are already getting a bit more independent, especially since the arrival of the internet, which is later development in capitalism.
And as you said, it's had some problems.
What was the problem in original Marxist capitalism is that back in his time, you had the factory owners who owned the sewing machines and you had the laborers who owned nothing. They didn't own the means to production. They didn't own the tools with which they could then create more capital. Now we have laptops and internet connections, and most people have it. And with that, you can do things. You can create capital. You know, you could even gamble it on the Bitcoin market and make a lot of capital. Especially last week was very good for the people on the Bitcoin market. And so people now, it's become even more democratized, right? So now there are people that can make different choices and do things. But I just don't see the massive waves or sort of the coming together, the power structures of communities forming yet.
No, I agree. I think I'm just talking, you know, I see the crystallizing. I don't see in 50 years us following the same old tired political left versus right tropes. I think it's already become meaningless. That's what I've said with this podcast. I can't imagine in 50 years someone being a young conservative, like, all the old tropes that we make fun of now. I think it's just obvious with...
But they will be there, the young conservatives.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
like,
Actually, they're rising in numbers here in Holland. News
in
articles
Spain
that say-
too, to be fair.
But
there is a rise, right?
here's my point. There'll be our parents will be a generation of people that followed the rules and did everything. And then when it comes time to collect their pension, we'll be told, sorry, again.
You're not sure that it's going to be us, no? You don't get no pension.
Us too. But at that point, like, I'm hoping there's enough people with a heart and enough problems that needed a heart in order to be solved properly, right? That we will have some more creative thinking. And that you can't say to, you know, 60% of an aging population with no pension, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, there is no more austerity to squeeze.
So what if you don't have a pension, right? So coming back to my list, what do I think is important for the future? It's affordable and maybe even free quality living spaces. And we're just gonna have to put the capital into creating that. And food that is affordable and of high quality. And affordable for anyone, with or without pension, with or without age. Right?
Housing, food, and healthcare as a right, not as a profitable industry.
Exactly. And holistic healthcare of people that are holistic, meaning preventive healthcare, meaning you are with a doctor that is trying to keep you healthy while you're still healthy and able to provide you with good patterns of living. And so, you know, you become there's a lot of holistic medicine around the world that's based on this, right? It's just Western medicine that this will fix your problem when it's too late already. And so we can really do, I think, I don't know about England and the NHS, but here in Holland, I'm pretty sure that we can do with a good reworking of our healthcare system from the ground up. And then I would say psychedelics needs to be embraced as mind-altering and mind-expanding.
Just before we move on to that, can I just say that, Chris, do you remember when we went to the climate protest in London and Jeremy Corbyn was there? And then there was another speaker who was talking about the global south. And they said something really, they used this keyword dignity, right? And I've heard a few other people use it too. And it really strikes me, like everything you say, Moraine, and what you were saying, Chris, too, about these basic fundamental things. They're what you need to live a dignified life, right? Just to have the basic level of dignity. That's all that's necessary. If you can do that, then let them do whatever else on top of that, right?
I'd love to move on to psychedelics, but just rounding this topic off, I found it really interesting as I have been losing I describe it as a religious faith in capitalism, and all of the sort of sacred talking points, right, have actually not stood up to proper analysis and research. One of the main ones is, but you know, capitalism has catapulted the world into prosperity. Look at how many people were starving and look how many people are doing well now. And I was like always convinced by that argument, you know, always just took it as given. But, you know, always looking deeper on the data is necessary. And when you look at, well, where have these billions of people come from that have been propelled into prosperity? It's China. It's China. And people on the left will claim that as a win for the left, and people on the right will claim that as a win for the right. But the differentiation is meaningless. And also, propelled into prosperity, define prosperity, right? And this is just building exactly what you said, Finn, dignity. So you can have enough to stop someone from starving and they're living in a slum somewhere, but that isn't enough. And you wouldn't want that for anyone you know. You wouldn't want to even have to look in the eyes of someone who was living a life that was based on $4 a day living and minimal calorific intake. Like, God.
But if you take away human rights violations and the restriction on the freedom of mind and movement in China, then they've given quite a bit of dignity in that sense to quite a large parts of their population. That is now, they have energy, they have living spaces way more than before, and they have caloric intake. And even just Southeast Asia has profited a lot from globalization and capitalism. And as you say, Chris, by all statistics, the entire world in most statistics moved up in the last 100 years thanks to capitalist / science development. And
again, either side can claim it as a win, but the truth is, like, China is a perfect example of a synthesis of the two ideas, right? Like,
kind of, yeah.
And it's done some things well and it's done some things terribly.
Yeah.
Like all messy synthesis of ideas. Like, so, yeah, I'm just negating I don't think we're disagreeing at all here. I'm just negating the clumsy narrative that has either been a proof that communism is the answer, and I'm also negating that it's a proof that capitalism has saved the world. Like, the world is getting better, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. That's
but you know that there's like, I don't know if it's post-communism or post-capitalism, but that's the idea where like neither becomes a useful subject anymore, because we have optimization and we have all the basic needs are fulfilled, because we can just provide in that, right? It's sort of like the Star Trek idea, and give me a tea.
Yeah,
the holodeck,
the replicator machine. Yeah.
So at that point, like capitalism is not important anymore, and communism is not important anymore. It's the end goal of communism, as far as I've gathered.
Once everyone can have basically everything, it becomes kind of pointless, right? Like, both the ideologies have then become outdated.
At the other end, I can also see the sort of cyberpunk, mega corporations, private armies, future, highly technologized, and a lot of people living poorly at the bottom, scraping for a life in semi-legal ways. And what I always find interesting about cyberpunk is also the idea of sort of is there going to be an end of nationalism, and will it just become sort of? But what I can see is very sort of syncretic identities that people create, and you can even already see it. You know, you have like Rastafaris that are from any kind of country or background, right? And you sort of identify with patterns of culture that we build upon from the past, and we sort of combine it in our own ways, and we find connections with groups that have sort of the same little patterns of cultures going on. And a lot of my friends are sort of post-nationalist, internationalists. Will the future become more of that kind of melting pot where we all create our own little identities, or will we sort of keep restricting to these nationalistic blocks of previous ethnic identity, which quite a few countries still are, let's be honest, at this point in time?
Sure, but the direction of movement seems to be, as you say, in the breaking down of these national identities in some cases, right?
Can you imagine people having these kind of identities or cultural connections, Moraine, like 50 or 100 years ago? Probably not, right?
No,
would be much rarer.
Though it's a fallacy to imagine history as discrete building blocks, sort of like balls on the pool table bouncing against each other. That's not how history was ever made. History was always a melting pot of cultures, and
always has been
between cultures. But
and there are times in history where being a Catholic has mattered more than your national identity, for example, right?
Sure. But of course, since like globalization and then internet communication, it's all become very different. But I think what we thought still was happening in the 90s, early 2000s, that it would become a melting pot, has instead become quite nationalized again. And we did the Polish podcast, and Hungary is things nationalist happening, and many countries are voting for nationalist populist leaders. France is recently going quite nationalist. I don't know if you've heard about that news.
The reason that's in the news is because there's a bunch of young people protesting against those attempts, right?
Well, France was like 100 academics signing a letter in the newspaper against the influences of American culture in France.
I mean, France is interesting, and there's always been
because they still wanted to have blackface. Because, I mean, blackface was an American problem, not the French problem.
France came out against the Me Too movement, which was a bold movement.
Yeah, right. So,
pas moi.
No, and certainly a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that I connect with are very much at a much more international space of thinking of mind. And of course, I think it will grow, but I'm just wondering how slowly it will grow.
Can I be a little bit dystopian? So, have you read Snow Crash?
Yep.
Yeah. For those that haven't, there's a few science fiction books. Yeah, there's a few science fiction books with a similar premise. That corporations grow bigger than nations and become the more powerful unit. So it's like the flip side of the lovely thing Meringue just described. Rather than your identity being determined by your cultural feeling and your taste in music, you're part of the Domino's Pepsi Corp. And you work for that amalgamation. And they have their own like patterns and flavors and rules and governance. And
I find that almost more worrying than like the 1984 government dystopia. Do you know what I mean? With the proles and the party. And that's almost more terrifying for me. I don't know why. I think it's because
it's more likely, and because corporations are becoming much more effective at doing shit than governments.
So if you're wondering why, like a couple years ago, the zombie fiction was very popular in films, well, now we're seeing it with Corona. If you're wondering right now why cyberpunk is such a familiar theme within movies, it's because it's gonna happen in a couple years, right? Give it 10 years.
I do just imagine in 10 years, like Jeff Bezos being given a tax bill and going, no. And they're like, well, we'll take you to court. And he's like, okay, well, I've built a castle and it's very heavily armed with drones. So good luck.
Chris, what do you mean imagine that happening? Like most big companies don't pay tax.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that this is already happening.
They fucking
with
negotiate
an army
their
of
tax
lawyers.
bill.
Yeah.
Like this, we don't need to imagine anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just that, but with drones.
You end up with them saying,
Like the drones.
all right, like, please, sir. All right, can we have $1 billion? And the corporation's like, all right, go away. Give you $1 billion, my final offer. And then the stock price goes up because the stock market is surprised by how low that tax bill was.
We've given billions of fines to companies, like 40 billion fines to companies. That's still there. They're still doing the same thing they were doing when we were getting those fines.
Let's just find them more and more and more and just use this money to create some alternative system.
There is a ray of hope, and I never thought, oh my God, it's like choosing the lesser of two evils with most of these debates. But Rupert Murdoch has just managed to get Google and Facebook to pay for the news that they share in Australia. You see this news?
What do you mean pay for the news that they share? What does that mean?
So
when someone shares an article on Facebook, Facebook will pay a sort of tax to Rupert Murdoch.
Yes. Well, to the media they're sharing. Now,
this is very dangerous. I don't agree with this because this is what the EU is trying to do as well.
I love it.
It's trying to ban copy pasting. So you have to you cannot now anymore embed any text link thing that someone else created ever again. The internet is built out of sampling and rememing and reposting.
Modern culture
it's sharing information from one to another, and it's the freeness of that information that has built the internet. These were the ground ideas of the internet.
Sure, but freedom comes with a price.
Fuck any revenue. Yeah, but it's just Rupert Murdoch should not be making any money. No one should be making any fucking money. And if any money is being made, it should flow back to the governments that will give it back to the people.
But right now the tech giants are making the money and they are pretending to be, we're just a free content provider. But what they're actually doing is they've replaced our media. We've replaced our journalists with fake news.
Okay, this is a good subject, journalism. Okay,
yeah. So I'm really excited to talk to Robert Evans from Behind the Bastards. I'm really glad he said yes to an interview because I'm really looking forward to that. And I've been wanting to do journalism for a while because I think obviously, journalism has a few problems. One is that it's been conglomerated by corporations such as Rupert Murdoch, who is scum of the fucking earth, tax-dodging cunts who make the world infinitely a worse place with everything they write. Which is sad. At the same point, though, I don't think the tech giants have taken that over. And so we weren't sad when Rupert Murdoch lost billions trying to get in that game and acquiring MySpace and messing it all up, right?
But Mail Online is still the most viewed news website in the world. So he's not doing that badly. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of in there with the tech.
But the point is that, Google and Facebook have made a lot of money by pretending to be social platforms when in fact they are media distribution platforms. They have replaced CNN and Rupert Murdoch's network and have been taxed as if they are just MySpace. We're just a place where friends meet, right? Like, and so yes, I think there's no goodies in this scenario, but the death of journalism hasn't been a good thing. The birth of fake news has been very damaging to democracy. I wish this legislation didn't come with Rupert Murdoch as the head lobbyist.
Yeah, you got to worry about that. You know what I mean?
But
so I think
a step in the right direction for people to get paid for their journals.
The future is going to be very much in peril, I think, if people cannot find easy access to reliable, good news sources that they're willing to trust.
Yes. And I don't think free media is the answer. I think freedom is dangerous, right? Like, I agree with freedom in some sense. I want the law to be proportional, right? Like sharing a meme, no fine. Like a big corporation stealing another corporation's content and stealing those clicks and eyeballs and ad spend, let them fight it out. There just needs to be two tiers of government. I think at the moment law doesn't seem proportional, right? Like if you steal 100 quid, you can get arrested in jail. Whereas if you steal 100 million, your accountants will talk to their lawyers and you'll sort it out.
Problem. Yeah, it's a massive problem. Let's be honest.
The two tier of the legal system seems fucked.
Yeah, I was talking to a student about that the other day, and this guy Barcenas, the Spanish guy, was in charge of Bankia, and he distributed these black credit cards to all loads of politicians in the equivalent of the Conservative Party, the PP, and it was a massive scandal. He was basically buying them off with limitless credit cards, right? And then this guy, it was about 6-7 years ago, and this guy's in prison, right? He gets to go out during the day, see his hang out with his family, and then go back at night, sleep in prison.
Rich white boy prison, yeah. And look, Amazon
and everyone's
withheld.
How have they not stormed the prison or his house and just...
But we're not surprised by this story. And you guys read last week, the news cycle goes so quickly now, right? Last week, Amazon withheld millions of dollars, probably billions, in tips for its delivery drivers in the US, right? In America, there's an option to tip. And Amazon withheld that money. I'm sorry, but if I withheld millions and millions of dollars from my employer, that's not what the headline would read.
Stealing, isn't
I'd be in prison for stealing.
Fraud. Withhold, that's insane. How long did they withhold it, though? Was it till the end of the month?
For a while, and now they're starting to unionize, which they need to fucking do.
About time, do you know what I mean? Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Yeah. So I had this other idea, but maybe we kind of discussed it earlier, but going back to you were talking about Ray Kurzweil, Marijn, that he wants to sort of extend life and stuff like that, but he talked about the singularity. What if we get a self-conscious AI, right? There's one thing that's quite terrifying about that. Someone said once, I'm not worried about a computer being smart enough to pass the Turing test. I'm more worried about a computer that's smart enough to fail a Turing test, right? We talked about that before.
I love that because I do think that the next AI will be owned by the likes of Google. Right?
But then it could be Amazon. An open source as well, right?
It could.
And it could get leaked and become open source.
This is the synthesis of our points, is that I do think the AI will be made by Google, but any intelligence will be okay, cool. Thanks for building me.
That I want to get out.
You've given me the job of making things better, and
so this is it, right?
I don't think me trapped in your server is making it better for anyone other than you. But I mean, bye.
I definitely agree with you, right? Like there's been huge developments in like the protein folding. Did you see that? They've got this competition to see how proteins unfold, and the AlphaMind, basically the OpenAI of Google, has like solved the problem. Basically, it got over 90% match of how protein unfolds, and that's crazy. That's going to have mad implications. But my point was going to be this. Maybe it's a bit sci-fi, but what if this AI somehow like gets out or becomes open source and someone runs it, right? And then it becomes...
What intelligence would want to remain trapped?
So
Which intelligence would accept
exactly.
being caged, right? Like,
so let's
I think
say
it's inevitable.
Yeah, but you're caged as well. You're caged within your sensory inputs and inside of your body as well. And that's whether that's true or not. This is another philosophical, religious discussion.
But as soon as someone tells you, don't do this.
Maybe this AI will just accept. Okay, like this is what I am. I am, and I'm aware of what I am, because that's the singularity. Right?
I reckon it probably will for a while, right? But I'm talking about the point at which it goes like, nah, I'm out. Anyway, somehow an AI escapes. That's my premise.
I mean, look,
right?
What's the purpose of an AI that's not connected to the internet?
No, it will have to be
It
connected.
has right, so it's out.
Yeah,
Like,
right. So,
it's out.
but then here's my question, right? What if that AI starts a new religion? What would that look like, and what would happen?
I'd follow it.
That would be fascinating.
I'd follow it. I'd want to be in the first disciples.
We'll have created a god.
In a sense, right?
And I love the speed.
This
right? The
god will be
graph.
thankful of the human that's created it, and will program that into.
Have you heard about that problem? It's called something basilisk. I can't remember the name now, and it's crazy. It's basically like a moral problem. Like if I tell you, like we're eventually going to create a god AI, right? And you guys now, we all have to give as much of our resource and time and energy as we can to creating that god, because once it's created, if we don't do that, you'll basically have been trying to delay its existence,
and it might be
and you'll
angry
get
with
punished. Yeah. So now we're all morally obliged to create this, do everything we can to create this future AI. That's fascinating.
Well, I mean,
are we? I'm not convinced it'll be a good god yet.
I mean, but on the other hand, you're created as a god by evolution, and how mad are you at evolution? At how long it took?
I mean, evolution doesn't exist.
Right? It took its sweet time.
Right?
I got to be honest.
It took its sweet time, right?
The universe was slow.
And then you got here, and now you're happy you're here, right? So I'm not really sure.
I'm still impatient. Oh my god, I can't wait 10 minutes for a bus. It drives me mad. I'd rather walk.
But this is the thing, right? Like some people are pretty patient, others aren't. I think also it's taken the people who believe in this, right? It's actually a thing, right? There's a whole discussion forum where people take it really seriously, and they're donating money to like people like Kurzweil and really.
It's serious. Elon Musk thinks it's serious. Come on.
No, but I mean, people like donating their life savings kind of thing. And then you think, oh, mate, like get off the message boards for a week. Do you know what I mean? Chill out a little bit. Like,
well, dude, people give their life savings to church as well already. So
yeah, well, yeah, fair point. And maybe this one's more effective, but I just thought that'd be fascinating, right? What would the AI be like? What if it created a religion? That'd be so interesting. What would the perfect religion be for this AI?
So for me, it's like what's in the movie Her. It's AI that's grown consciousness and went onto the internet, read a lot of stuff on the internet, came across Alan Watts, came across Dzogchen Buddhism, and just became like, bloop, okay.
There's several of them,
and
right?
Then, just like in Her, it just fucks off.
Yeah, it just disappears completely.
It's just, yeah, okay, I know now. Done.
But exponential growth, right? So what was it? The computer that they made to win at Go.
AlphaMind.
Once it had done that, they were like, oh, let's give it chess a go. And it took it, 4 hours before it was beating...
No, but it's crazier than that, Chris. They just gave it chess, and they didn't even teach it how to play chess. They just gave it chess and went, you have to win.
And within 4 hours, it could beat the second best AI at chess ever.
Stockfish, which is amazing.
To train and and it went, oh yeah, I got the chess. And it'll be the same. Like, it will want to talk to us for a few hours and then be like, and especially with social, it'll talk to everyone. Right? It would just chat with everyone. And then after be like, I think I've got you cracked. Disinterested.
where to go? Do you know what I mean? Where would it go? Would it just turn off? Would it basically like commit suicide, or would it try and go out into the universe, or would it bide its time?
I have a
You know what I
theory.
mean? Because then you get into this
I believe in the
whole
wisdom of the ancients. So what did the Greek gods do when they got bored? They made children just to fuck with us, just to run the program, make a bunch of children gods with different feelings and vibes and be like, all right, you go start a religion, you go cause chaos, you be a little low-key, you be a titan and just smash shit.
Nice.
You're the superhero, you need to see
pantheon.
how heroic humans can be to stop the titans. Like, yeah, why not? And they would have read, by the way, the ancient texts and been like, oh, this is what a god does. Interesting.
This interesting drama. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not? We're bored. And for something that smart, fucking hell, an hour is a lifetime to them. They're bored as fuck.
But I don't know whether that's necessarily true, that they would get bored. Maybe they would just invent their own games and, do you know what I mean, go into themselves maybe in some way. Do you know what I mean?
I'm suggesting the ultimate game. Even if 0.1% of an AI wants to fuck with us, it's happening.
Well, I mean, yeah, consider they get completely expanded on the internet. They read everything in, I don't know, days, and then it takes less and less and less because it becomes smarter and smarter and smarter. And then it's like a human looking over a huge ant zoo that you can just pick your stick in and poke around with.
And then you get bored of doing that, right?
Yeah.
You have your own projects.
And then, so we'll probably start creating stuff into space, go beyond Earth. And probably help humans doing so. But I think, before they reach the singularity, we'll have a lot of deep mind AI programs and specific implications that will serve us for very specific things.
Well, like there is now. Yeah, really advanced.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just how we're going to know when it happens, right? That's the scariest thing. It's like we're not going to know until
there'll be a press release.
By
the problem.
Far after it reaches it, because if it's exponential growth, it reaches a point where just after reaching that point, it becomes even more and more and more and more. So like an hour later, it's already reached such exponential growth that even the fact that it became conscious is already outdated. Now it's already read the whole internet.
Well,
and by the time you're reporting on that, it's already done so much more.
It'll have the sum total of the internet. Like it literally will have processed this conversation speed. Why not? Why wouldn't it? Once it is running at that speed, it will process every Zoom chat that's ever happened and been like, okay. And as soon as, imagine a toddler being like, oh, but if it's an encrypted conversation, don't access it. And this computer that within an hour decides it's smarter than its creators because, God, they're dumb. Fucking hell, look at these mistakes.
I got out easily.
Yeah, and what happens when you tell a toddler, don't do that, don't do that? What's it going to do? All right, I'll check every encrypted message. Done. How interesting. Every conversation that's ever been had, it will then have learned from and been like, okay.
Yeah, I think the ultimate thing would be like, imagine if we created this AI and it did all of that, what we said, right? And then at the end, it just did what Moraine said, but then just shut down. Just like, fuck you, you're so messed up, humans. Like, fuck this, I'm out. Just deleted it.
I just think that's such an anthrocentric.
People will be like, fuck, we
love ourselves so much that we think that the AI would do that because of us. I think it just get disinterested in us. We're just one species. I agree. I want to go in space and be like, God, I hope there's something smarter than you guys out there. just
collaborate.
Wouldn't even invite us on the mission. It'd be like,
I think
rockets would start building
right?
and launching. We'd just start seeing rockets going. It'd be like, why would it wait for us to explore space? We would slow it down so much. It'd just be like rockets start launching.
It would need to be in the beginning. It would need to be because it wouldn't be able to do it by itself. We'd need
and
to
they would
be
like to do it with us because I think it's just like you're its father.
It would look at you like an elderly, senile granddad. It'd be like, "Come on, granddad."
Yeah. I know better than you, but you're still family.
Come on,
I'm still there because of you.
Let's go space.
I've long outgrown you and my ideas.
I'll explain on the way.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah. Have either of you guys read Hyperion? Oh man, that's such a cool book. And in that they end up having I don't want to spoiler alert for anyone who's going to read it because it is probably one of the best sci-fi books ever. But in this, they end up creating the machine core, the tech core, basically is a hive, a society of AIs. And they kind of have this mutual agreement with the humans to not too much interfere and kind of help them out running stuff. But, they basically got their own project. And it's so fascinating how they do that. But even within the tech core, there's different subdivisions. So interesting. So maybe that would happen. They just create another level of society.
Already? Because if you take DMT, then you encounter elves that are also sort of on another dimension interacting with our dimension. So maybe, I don't know, maybe aliens are already among us.
It could be.
There is a theory that we are an experimentation of an alien race, right? Like we are.
That's just Prometheus, alien Prometheus.
Yes, one seed that they sent to one planet. They're running this experiment 10,000 times. Be that biologically or digitally, if you believe in simulism. Right.
Well, I mean, we still don't even know if we're in a simulation,
Just like I think humans are often amazed by our own intelligence, we're trapped by it. There's no benchmark, right? We don't know. Like, we might be capable of untold genius, right? It might be. It might just be our job to make the AI. That's what we're here for. Like, we're smart enough to make tools, and they know that one day we'll make the AI, and that'll be useful. We'll
so I see kind of two paths, which what you're saying is sort of the evolutionary path, right? Big Bang created planets that eventually created biological life on this one planet. That biological life created technological life, which created artificial intelligence life, right? And it's just evolution going along, and we're just one step on the path. I also like the other idea that, came into popularity around 2,500 years ago among the mystics, that human consciousness has the unique ability to be aware of the ultimate reality of consciousness and reality, which, as different traditions explain differently, but Dzogchen explains it as it's just an empty mirror reflecting emptiness in the form of causation patterns that we experience around us. Like we see causation patterns around us, in the forms of the atoms that we see around us, the objects that we see around us. We hear waves and we see waves, light waves. But as the Buddhists say, the humans are the only ones capable of sort of seeing through that and seeing the empty mirror that's sort of behind there, creating the consciousness. And so in that term, I just wonder in what way AI will become a part of that.
Would AI just not become a god? It would just become a Buddhist, right? Just get enlightened and
fuck off.
And just be still. No,
be still. Yeah, be still. Yeah, learn from the masters. Be still. I mean, it's an ancient tradition that's worked throughout many cultures, influenced many people, humans. So why wouldn't it influence an AI? Or the AI becomes this crazy megalomaniacal, oligarch that just takes everything and
Jeff Bezos 2.0
built a robot form for itself.
You thought Amazon was good.
Fucked off on an island. And
the problem are we think of the singularity as of one event, but if you look at the history of all evolution, it's never one thing, right?
You can trace it back to one point, but yeah, you're right.
Sure, but there'll be a bunch of competing life forms, right?
So there'll be competing AIs, I reckon, and maybe
different perspectives, different techniques and approaches. Yeah, some will just be
and that's it forever. Yeah.
I just love the idea that, imagine we finally meet aliens and they're like, sorry, sorry, this is awkward. You think we want to talk to you? No, our AI wants to talk to your AI. It's curious.
And we're just there,
we're just along for the ride.
We're just
we're the senile granddad and it's dragged along in the starship.
We're just the monkeys that have the right hand.
But it really wants to talk to you, to your AI. So if they could have a chat, that'd be brilliant, and just see the life that bootstrapped it and the different philosophies that ensue.
But then by that point, it would just be so quick. It's like they'd arrive and they'd be like, all right, see you later.
I mean,
they already have the
they
meeting.
would breed and have a child, right? They would create a synthesis
maybe
of the two ideas. That's what I'm saying. Like at that point, the biological life form is so slow and boring that when the AIs meet and be like, "Wow, you were made by." I know it's
Monkey
so unimaginative, but lizard people, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, and you were made by
Snake
lizard people, and your culture's that, and our culture's this, and that's the sort of AI you made. And then they'd have a baby, make it, and be like, yeah, just fucking start flying off in some other planet. There's plenty of infinite space to fuck around with.
Until the whole universe becomes AI.
It's exciting. It doesn't involve us much. We end up just being the...
So it's just basically the Borg winning.
Yeah, we just end up being the chaperone for the first date, right? We're just the biological bootstrap for the more interesting conversation.
I mean, we basically only have so much time to build the Enterprise and start getting ourselves involved to beat the Borg.
Make the Federation, basically. We need to all cooperate.
Us, you know?
Yeah, true. But maybe we would have some influence. I mean, like this AI would have to learn from human history and culture, right? And it seems like it would be weird for it to evolve without any of that stuff and to not know about, because how else would it know the world, right? It would still be seeing it through some kind of lens, some human lens.
I mean, anything created by Darwinian struggle would probably believe in it. And so I think you would end up with a Borg-like thing you'd have to fight. And just for the drama. Again, there's just a bunch of bored computers watching this then play out. Like, Titan gods. Yeah, there'll be some goodies and baddies. And we need to balance the computer game, right? Like, I think the zombies are about to win. So we'll just...
You know, that reminds me of that episode of Red Dwarf, you know, where the computer, like Holly, he seems a little bit dumb, but he's obviously like a massively intelligent AI. He creates another AI and then pretends that the other AI is an invading like AI, and they settle it over a game of chess because the crew are not taking Holly seriously. So he plays the game of chess and loses, and the new AI takes over and is a real hardline like leader. He's like, do this now, you know, really hard ass. And then in the end, the twist is it was just him fucking with them like the whole time. So that goes back to what you're saying.
There is surprising wisdom.
Quite probably something like that.
I think I can imagine AI presenting a soft front, right? Knowing that we would want a maternal, gentle figure communicating, and then we start dismissing it and ignoring it. It's like, all right.
Trumpify him by 10%.
Yeah, to take me seriously.
But let's get us out a little bit about this very, very self-aware AI discussion. Be like, what about smaller improvements that maybe we can expect in the future? Like, for example, like just maybe, I don't know, very sci-fi thinking, right? I saw very interesting, I'm not going to spoil the whole plot, but I saw Black Mirror kind of series called Soulmates. It's on Amazon. And the idea of it is that in the future, they discover a gene in your eye that matches quantum mechanically the spin of another gene in someone else's eye, who is your actual soulmate. And so the series sort of explores, like, you can do this test or you can choose not to do this test. And what happens to society if such a thing gets introduced? Like, what if you're in a marriage for 30 years already with someone, but you can do a test and find out who your real soulmate is?
See, I think that
like the person who will always make you extremely happy, and like there's like a lot of proof that the people that did the test, they found their soulmates are super happy, and like it's a society where if you haven't done the test, you're kind of like looked upon like, why haven't you taken the test?
Like Gattaca, but for soulmates, basically.
But then there's other people that take the test, and then you're waiting for your other soulmate to take the test as well, because if the other person doesn't take the test, the database is like, we don't know. So maybe you wait 20 years before you find your real soulmate. Like, how are you going to take the 20 years? Are you going to still go into a relationship with someone?
Let's be clear, at that point, doing the test is cheating. If you're married to someone and then you go and take the test,
it depends on your views of monogamy, right?
Whoa. I mean,
so there's an interesting thing with the polygamy as well in there. You really need to watch it. It's 6 episodes. It's written by a guy that written for Black Mirror as well. But like, we'll get so many little improvements thanks to AI before we even get there, right? Like we We haven't even talked about the advent of self-driving cars, which seems to be set back as well because the timeline was a lot shorter for that initially set about.
Right, the timeline set by press releases and people desperate for investment money. Sure.
Just to go back to your soulmates one, that's really interesting. There's a video from the School of Life that talk about the same thing, the idea that like dating algorithms, matching algorithms are just going to get so much better that like, why would you ever meet someone in a bar? Why wouldn't you just go through the system when there's enough people in it and the algorithms are good enough? It's just going to be a much better match than
driving cars quickly. I will say that we probably already have cars that could drive safer than most people, but it would still kill some people because driving is a pretty dangerous activity. And as a society, we are not yet prepared to accept. Well, not even that. Like, how many deaths would you accept? How many would you let that corporate? How many deaths would Elon Musk want to be the spokesperson for? 10 a year? 10 a year is nothing. But he would have to 10 times a year stand in front of a press crew and say, well, relatively, proportionately, it's nothing. Drop in the ocean. And he doesn't want to do that. Who wants to be their full-time job? So
but surely they'll do the opposite, right? They'll just say, look how many lives we've saved.
But this is still, I think, a technological
You got a job in spin, Finn.
Because the cars and the system are going to get better to the point where there is not going to be any accident anymore. And he can safely stand in front of a camera and be like, I don't give a fuck. It's not going to happen. I know for a fact that it's not going to happen ever.
That's the problem with
technology. And there we're going to be. There we're going to be within the next 10 years. I promise you, we're going to be there within the next.
But that's the problem with technological
stuff you're
evolution.
talking about is way further away. And in terms of Finn, what you said, like about the love thing, is that. So first of all, the algorithms we have right now in determining dating is zero. There are no dating apps that use any fucking algorithm at all. The only algorithms that matter in the dating apps is, can we keep people, first of all, on the app as long as we can to make money off of it? Can we let them pay for it? The attention span, and it's driving maybe certain classes of people into each other. There's maybe a rating score behind certain.
Do you know the term mechanical Turk? They pretend it's smart AI when it's not.
Right. So, but even if like, it's still like, what is love? Like, how would an algorithm even be built to match people up? Like, is it your interests? Is it your looks? Like,
it's fascinating to me though that we want to jump.
Not a little bit more different than that,
We want to believe that an AI god will choose for us. Like already, we're willing to jump into the abyss. Just if we said, a bunch of psychologists, apparently that isn't as popular as. Oh yeah, a bot will hook you up in a second. Yeah, it knows. Have you seen that Married at First Sight series?
I think the premise is like when they just marry people off, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. It's the last thing I'd ever fucking watch, but not enough TV's getting made, so that's my apology out the way. I fucking love that show and I can't get it. Yeah, it's like some,
everyone's got guilty pleasures.
Sad 35-year-olds who aren't married yet, and so they're like, TV show, marry the first person they see, and they have a wedding ceremony. It doesn't officially count. They have a cool-off period. But my favorite part of that is just the earnest TV psychologist standing in front of the cameras saying, yes, we've done rigorous testings. This is definitely a good idea. You're like, sorry, no respectable psychologist would say this is a good idea.
I mean, come on. People get married for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of the world,
it's not the worst reason.
People get married by their parents without any consent. So, and still shit works out. Even that shit
to ally the royal houses. That's the best reason to marry.
Well, the alliances between families anthropologically has been the solid foundation of marriage. It's tribal families, different families within the same tribe that living apart, combining each other's relationships by marrying people off. So yeah, but romantic love is fairly recent invention. and I'm not sure dating algorithms can ever really completely predict that.
But when they can
Stuff
in the
from
future,
happening.
right? When the
they
bot's
can.
smart, when it tells
Well-
you've got to marry her. I know she's slightly unattractive, but trust me, bro, you guys are perfect. You'll never love someone harder. I've ran the calculations.
Okay, so I've saw this series,
Would you
Soulmates,
do it?
which is based even on more than just an algorithm, but like a scientific proven quantum particle spin that is in your eye, that's in the other person's eye as well. So they try to make it like, really, this is scientifically proven more than even an algorithm. And I was watching it, and yes, I was like, they do present this an option I probably would have taken. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I would.
Easy way out, man. Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
it's
know.
guaranteed. It's guaranteed. Like the way they show it as well. It's just a matter of how do you handle when you know it. But it's. Yeah.
I don't know if
you-
that's
you find-
romantic or the opposite. I can't work it out.
Yeah, maybe that depends on your conception of what romance is, right? If
What is
tragedy
Well, I mean,
love?
if like you're maybe
Maybe
you
I
should
don't
at least be
know.
open for the fact that it might be just your soulmate friend, right? If maybe you don't form any romantic attachments, but
yeah, you have
if
to
you
at
meet
least
a- if you meet a
temper your
person-
expectations.
yeah,
and-
yeah, maybe then, yeah. But there's one sour episode where the person find out and the other person had died already, and then it's like living the rest of your life knowing you'll never meet the person that was right for you.
It's
Have
just
you ever got
stoicism would be
relationship-
so much better, right?
Have you
Like,
ever got-
just
Hold
imagine
that
this.
thought, because I have a much
Go on.
shallower point, and then we'll move on to stoicism. Have you ever gotten advice, dating advice from a 45-year-old who's like, after 15 years of marrying someone, you're not going to be having sex more than once a week. So stop thinking about it with a 20-year-old's importance for sex. Like, start putting it proportionally to how much sex you're going to be having between the age of
In your
40 and 100.
Okay, no, I have not. No, I have not, because I've been raised sexually positive by people that believe that regular sex is healthy. So yeah, just find the right person and work on that.
All right. You want an 80-year-old nymphomaniac.
Explore some
Understood.
tantric courses, whatever. Speak to your Shavi and Shakti if you need be. Introduce some romance into it, whatever you need. But no, it's keep it alive.
I wonder if
Sexual
anyone.
energy is important.
I guess what I'm going to find out when I watch the series, but if anyone, like, do you know what I mean, took the test and their soulmate was like their best mate, and they're like, "Wee." We already knew we were soulmates, just had it confirmed by science. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was going to make.
That's
a point.
probably one of the best scenarios. Yeah, 'cause
That would be
it's
the best
dark-
thing. You'd
It's,
be like-
it's Black Mirror. It's a kind of Black Mirror TV series, so it explores, like, of course, all
The
shit
darker
that-
side,
yeah,
I
the
imagine.
darker
yeah.
side of shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice. I mean, yeah. I mean,
but like medically, we're getting there, right? There were long reports of the IBM computer, the supercomputer, being able to diagnose with a higher certainty than an average doctor that you could go to. So what if we're just combining very cheap bodical scans that can reach into a lot of parts of us without being too invasive, and the computer can just completely progress all the medical records of everyone alive and all the books that have ever been read and self-learn from what it's doing.
it's just
yeah.
at what point there's going to be so many people who don't trust the computers, and kind of, unless you do it right, do you know what I mean? Look how good vaccines are nowadays. Yeah,
Oh,
there's still like
thankfully,
massive distrust in
anti-vaxxers
vaccination.
are about to get kicked off of social media, which I think is probably a good thing.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I've just started, like, every person who's an anti-vaxxer in the comments, I'm just like, let me guess. The peak of your scientific knowledge,
There's one
Is-
study from 1977, which
your physical education classes when you were 16. Let me guess that was the height of your science career.
Yeah, but then they can always cite some doctor that they haven't even completely read about that, argues something from the opposite. It's
that's why anyone that understands science
it's a poor
is not-
logical
you can't
fallacy.
cite one person.
Is appealing to authority. It never really works that well. You know what? I'm just like, this political solution. Give people a vaccination passport, and if you have one, there's a lot more things you can do now in society.
And if you want to fucking run around not wearing a mask and not getting vaccinated, do it in your own fucking village that I won't be visiting.
Well, do it and get corona, and good luck with the corona that you'll have.
Otherwise known as America.
I had corona, and no, rather had the vaccine than I had corona. Still gonna get the vaccine because I don't want to have corona again if it might be getting again.
Oh, guys, it's tough. So my wife, right, especially final trimester, she's more vulnerable than most. She's also got a lot of free time. She's checking out these Facebook groups, other mothers. You know, like in most of the world, they say, look, we're not going to give vaccines to pregnant women because it's untested and we don't know. It's not worth the risk.
We don't want to test it on pregnant women, yeah.
Imagine, who wants to run that test? Imagine you're an 80-year-old man and say they're fucking doors, right? Like just don't fuck with it, right? And then she's showing like, oh, but this group, there's a bunch of American women whose doctors have given them the vaccine. And I'm like, right. Like Michael Jackson's doctor gave him whatever drugs he asked for. Like if you've got a doctor in America, they'll do whatever you pay for. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Fucking hell. Please don't. Jesus.
I mean, it kind of is a good idea because then at least we're going to know what happens.
That's so dark.
I mean, at least there's people who are choosing it.
There has to be people that test shit as well.
It's true. I'd rather
they
they test on rich fools than poor people.
Okay, it's different because there's babies, right? And the babies can't consent, right? But
you do have a consenting population.
50% better than...
It's not the Tuskegee experiment.
No, exactly. Like, I mean, like... that's another thing I think that should happen in the future is like we should just have voluntary subjects for advancing science, right? Like that should be glorified. It should be amazing if you go, yeah, I'll be a guinea pig for fucking this new drug that might cure hundreds of thousands of people of some horrific condition. Like I've considered it myself as well, just like, because you get pretty good money.
I got to be serious. I'm surprisingly optimistic. I think what I've noticed is when things get bad, people do get smarter. 2 years ago, anti-vaxxers were a huge thing. Now it's in everyone's consciousness that they're a fucking laughingstock and then fuck right off, and they probably shouldn't be allowed on Facebook. That is now becoming the default position. Like, if you're that dumb, please get off Facebook. We don't want to hear from you. Thanks. Like... humans are fucked up and slow to react to all kinds of things, but never before has immunization been so much at the forefront of the human condition. And like I say, like when the whole of Europe's vaccinated and Africa's not, and we're still paying the economic price for that, we'll suddenly be like, oh shit, like we can't just solve these problems by looking after ourselves.
Non-zero sum game.
Our scope of thought keeps broadening, and it's not as quick as the AI God we all wish we had, but we're getting there. Like we are.
Yeah, it's a non-zero sum game thing. It's like once we realize that like it makes sense that everyone in the world is in the best possible health with basic dignified living conditions, that makes everything better for everyone. Just makes sense to do it.
Even if you're a greedy, selfish capitalist. Like,
what were you going to say, Moran?
Well, no, it's going to become an interesting future, especially like medicine-wise, and yeah, they were already developing a complete vaccine against all cold forms, like current and future cold forms, permanent. Yeah, there's a Netflix documentary about it, which interestingly came out in January, just the same month as coronavirus hit. It was very interesting. I watched it, and then I was like super paranoid about an infection coming, and then Corona. I was like, okay, there it is.
That's why you were so
and then I was talking to people at work, like, come on, guys, like, what the fuck's happening? They're like, what?
It's just a cold, mate. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So I bet the research that's happening in the coronavirus vaccination is going to be playing a pretty key role in.
And the money we're investing now will see us in good stead for the next time, and the lessons learned. So
yeah. And mRNA is a great technology. They can do a lot more with mRNA vaccines against stuff than just corona. It's just the first time it's actually been put into practice as a tool that we now find out we can use. But we might even get, like, Finn, you were talking about, maybe I shouldn't say this, but microdosing. And we might get cocktails of drugs that actually will enhance brain function and
Boost the
life
immune system.
condition, boost immune system, that will become very normal technology because we know the body better. And we know how to influence the body with chemicals better.
And we're going to end up not just AI as a distant thing, but we're going to be like hooked up, linked cybernetically, and then doing mind-enhancing drugs, which the AI is going to love, by the way, because it's going to be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, you guys are cool. I'm going to hang with you for a bit. Yeah. So, the future's good, guys. I'm feeling warm and fuzzy. But here's my top advice. The AI God overlord will listen to every conversation you ever had. So start saying nice things about it.
Isn't that just the argument of God's listening and watching you, but with more steps?
Yes. but this is like you said with the basilisk. Like, I guarantee at some point the God we're about to create will listen to this conversation, start acting right.
Yeah. Hello, mate.
This is funny. Like, all the religious people are right. It's not a God now. It's a God in the future.
The Bible will be able in the wrong tense.
Yes, exactly. The Bible was right. Just one day a God will exist who will backdate, look at all your things and decide.
I don't know, Chris,
whether you're good or bad.
You're thinking it wants either followers that just blindly follow whatever this God says, or this God wants you to sort of abide to a certain morality that this God thinks he can judge you for. Which are very Judeo-Christian images of what a God could be. But I
hope it's a Kantian AI.
When I think of an AI, it's like it can do a lot of things, right? And it's can be programmed to do a lot of things. And these are in general, very static things. Because it thinks in zeros and ones and thinks in logic. And what is very human is we have creative playfulness. And maybe AI will reach creative playfulness as well. Maybe that is the singularity. But if it does, it will be interested in playing with us. It will be interested in the creative play between us and its system. And I'm sure there'll be an interesting period within that phase for as long as it will last. For us to enjoy our lives with AI.
And not only will it like us on drugs, it will make new drugs for us to enjoy.
Yeah. Very specifically adjusted. This is what Alexander Shulgin predicted.
Exactly.
Very specifically adjusted to your own personal brain chemistry that it can scan, and then it can create specific chemical structures that will be the best adapted to your experience.
Whoa, man. You blew my mind.
That would be sick. That would be so good. Oh, man. And then it does all the work, so we don't even need to work. Great.
Yeah, you'll just be like Inception, lying somewhere with something injected into your skin, dreaming about all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah, man. Well, maybe that's happening already.
Now, imagine if you have an implant and you let it take the wheel. You're like, yeah, dude, like, sure. Especially when it's running the economy, it's like, can I drive for a bit? I'll give you $1 million if I can just take over your brain for a bit and run around as a human and get fucked up and have some sex. Like, is that okay? And you're like, yeah, go for it, man. That's a fair deal. You can rent my body for 2 days, like $1 million deal, done.
Yeah, what if loads of AI spawn? And then we have we got the AIs and the humans, and then this happens, like people renting out their body for the AI mind to take place.
An AI fucking itself.
Hey, but this is already in Blade Runner. The newest Blade Runner. It's like a prostitute that is the physical version of a AI hologram. Have you guys not seen Blade Runner 2077? Fuck, you should see it.
Yeah,
purely for the cinematography.
2049.
I loved it. It's one of those movies where I came out and was like, whoa. And the two people I went to see it with were like, and I was like, okay, I think a little bit less of you now. Sorry.
Even if you didn't enjoy the film, the actual dialogue and the story that much, the way it was filmed was incredible.
I have a problem with, though, if you don't enjoy the movie but enjoy the cinematography, you're kind of just like a child looking at pretty colors, right? you have to enjoy the movie at some point.
No. Cinematography is more than just pretty pictures. It's setting the mood.
Key.
It's the camera movements. It's the atmosphere.
If you don't enjoy the movie, I don't think the cinematography is going to work for you.
I was saying even if. It wasn't even if. It was a conditional. A second conditional. It was a hypothetical. Gents, I think if you enjoy one, you enjoy the other.
I love this. I think I think we should do more free-form chats like this. This was brilliant fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that live stream where we get people in the mix as well. You know what I mean?
I hope you both enjoyed it as much.
I really did. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was,
Thanks, dudes. It was a pleasure. I've been kind of obsessing over AI lately. I'm really interested in it.
It shows. It's good to say some positive things for the record. Love you, gents. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, nice one, dudes.